This is The Second Studio, hosted by the Architecture and Design Office fame. My name is David Lee. I'm a partner at the office and host of the show. Today, our guest is also David Lee. He's the co-founder of Buildnotes LA. Buildnotes LA is an online marketplace, a broker of sorts, that allows fire rebuild owners and contractors to purchase materials, products, equipment, and other building items at a massive discount with the power of collective purchasing. Essentially, the more people who buy things through their platform, the greater the discount is. And so David talks about his background, how he started Buildnotes, why his particular set of skill set, expertise, and interest happened to align perfectly with this. We also discuss the specifics of how Buildnotes works. How do we buy stuff on there? How the discounts work? How do they solve connecting vendors with owners, with contractors? What's next for Buildnotes? And of course, how we, the community, can help them grow and get the word out and be more productive, and also allow David to sleep a bit more, because I think he's working extremely hard these days on creating this wonderful platform. So I hope you guys enjoy it. And again, I highly recommend you check out their website, which is buildnotes.la, and sponsors. Are you tired of juggling multiple pieces of software and struggling with spreadsheets that aren't made for the realities of design and architecture in 2023? Built by and for designers and architects, Programma's all-in-one suite of tools has everything modern studios need for every stage of a project. Mood boards, the world's best specification tools, procurement tracking, project management, and more. All smartly integrated and easily shareable and always up to date, reducing time-consuming double handling and costly errors. Share work in various formats, from PDFs to client-friendly, up-to-date online dashboards. Join the ranks of leading studios using Programma today. Click the Programma link in our show notes to start for free. This is The Second Studio with myself and David Lee. Here we go.
My background is not in architecture or building, but I am a software developer. And when the fires broke out, I was actually just helping a couple friends of mine whose homes burned down in Altadena. So two different couples, and really just helping them out with basic stuff. Buying them clothes and, making sure they have hotels to stay in and everything. But in doing that, I met some of their neighbors who were architects and builders. And very early on, they were really intent on building back and working together, and bringing their resources, their networks, their expertise to bear to try to help folks build back faster and more affordably. And they asked me to build a couple tools. Really, they were just logistical things that they thought they were going to need in orchestrating this. So a master calendar, a master map of all the projects going on at any given time in the burn zones, right? So that whoever was working could collaborate. And so I built some of those things for them, and then sort of started to meet more of the community and have more conversations. And I realized that really what everyone was talking about was collective purchasing. That was kind of the top topic on everybody's mind, which was pooling people's, pooling the community's money and resources to group purchase or bulk purchase, because everyone could see that there was a lot of overlap in the types of things and materials that everyone was going to need in building back. And so the community was very intent on that. And that was interesting because that topic, collective purchasing and group purchasing, is actually something that I've been obsessed with for over a decade, for a very, very long time. So it was kind of, it's a random thing to be obsessed with, but I have been. And so I realized this was kind of a chance to try some of the things that I had wanted to try for a long time.
Wait, so your interest in bulk purchasing, is that from your current or previous job? Is that from just a random interest? Like, I'm guessing it wasn't specific to houses.
It's not, right. It wasn't specific to houses. It was actually, I've actually tried it in a couple different areas and industries. I mean, most immediately, you could say I'm an amateur woodworker at best. And so there were some times where I have tried to build things and have tried to, furniture and make things on a small scale, only to go to a lumberyard, say, to find out that the slab that I wanted cost $2,000, right? And realizing and thinking, hoping that there's a cheaper way to find lumber if only, I could place a larger order. And sure enough, if you go to a mill and you place a much larger order, you can get that slab for a lot cheaper. And so that was kind of an immediate pain point for me. But even beyond that, it goes further back to sort of, I don't know. I've always had a sort of obsession with collective purchasing, collective group action. Growing up in the Bay Area, that was kind of a big theme of organizing, right? Social community organizing and leveraging collective power to do any number of things, right? For me, I guess I've always had an interest in alternative materials or sustainable materials, and the idea that the sustainable alternative option is almost always more expensive, right, than the
Right.
incumbent common unsustainable material. And so I kind of became obsessed with the idea of figuring out ways to make the more sustainable option more affordable for people. And that goes for like, everything from clothing, textiles to, plastic cups and, cups made of algae or, organic biodegradable materials, which, you have a lot of great companies, a lot of great startups who are always trying to bring in these into the market, but they're always, 20, 30, 40% more expensive than the solo cup or whatever.
Yeah.
And, realizing that though 20, 30, 40% can seem like a lot, there are ways where if you purchase that amount in wholesale amounts, you can actually get that discount and get that percentage off. And so I kind of, tried that in a lot of different capacities in different industries. But it wasn't until, this tragic event happened where I think the collective urge and need was strong enough for people to maybe try something as radical as this.
I had no idea you had any kind of background in woodworking and an interest in these things beforehand, but now it completely tracks. Like you're the guy. Like it makes sense that you would be leading this effort. Okay, so jumping right into it, right? I want to hear more of the story, but people are probably wondering, like, what exactly is Buildnotes? So how would you describe Buildnotes to the layperson? Let's imagine we have an audience who are obviously architects, builders, and also people looking to rebuild or build in general. Like, what is it?
Yeah, so the simplest way to think about it is a wholesale marketplace that was developed specifically for the LA wildfire rebuild.
Okay.
We are trying to save folks anywhere from 40 to 60% off on their construction materials. And we're trying to do that by organizing and enabling larger volume purchases of those materials by helping to coordinate amongst the customers, but also amongst the vendors who have been really receptive and have been really great and amenable because it really serves their objectives too.
It sounds like a great idea. It also sounds like one of those things that's much more difficult to do in practice because you have it. I suppose the platform and the website and the market is reliant on you corralling together a bunch of different people and trying to make it work. So I'm kind of jumping forward to a specific question, but like, I think one of the questions is, okay, so does that mean as a homeowner, I have to partner with, 6 other people on my block to secure a discount, which has been discussed many times. And I know you know this, like there are always these smaller communities within your community who are trying to build together using the same GC, the same architect, the same whatever else to lower the cost. I have found that historically, the chances of that working out in such a tight-knit way is unfortunately not very high, right? Like one person falls out because they decide not to rebuild, another person gets sick, whatever, and pretty soon the whole thing deteriorates. So is that kind of closeness a requirement to get a discount on the buildnotes.la website?
Yeah, the way you described it is not how it has to work and how our platform works. I think some of the solutions you just described start to tend towards a very vertically integrated approach, where you have one GC, one builder, everyone kind of either getting the same plan or similar plans, and limited options for different materials. Our approach you could think of as horizontal, right? So, it doesn't matter which specific materials you buy from a vendor, so long as you're buying from the same vendor. We've come up with a really simple system because we listen to a lot of the approaches that the community first threw out there. And frankly, these are things that I've tried previously, right? So I think a lot of people's conception of a group purchase or a bulk purchase here means literally putting all your money, sending your money to one person so that they can all place an order with the same credit card, have it delivered on the same date to the same address, right? And then everyone comes and picks it up at that lay down or someone's yard, right? That wasn't going to work for a number of reasons, and so we kind of stepped back and tried to think of a solution that would work for all parties involved: homeowners, builders / architects, and the vendors. And what we came up with was a pretty simple system, which doesn't necessarily achieve the maximum objective for any one party, but it achieves partial aims for everyone. So what I mean by that is we've gotten the vendors to treat the entire community as one group. So all 3 burn zones, Altadena, Palisades, and Malibu. If anyone purchases from a vendor in any of those 3 areas, they can count towards a volume tier or a minimum order quantity for that vendor. It doesn't matter where you're located, where your address is. It doesn't matter when you purchase, within reasonable time frame. So, we have vendors who are giving a couple years time frame for a certain offer or a deal. And then the vendors can then set minimum order quantities for the entire community to hit. So for example, we've got some vendors on the platform for whom if 5 projects purchase from them in the next 2 years or next 3 years, then that will unlock 30% off for the entire community. If 10 projects purchase from them, that will unlock 40% off for the entire community, meaning everyone who purchases from that point on, after that 10th project hits, gets 40% off. And so it's a really simple format and a really intuitive goal for the community to hit, while also giving the vendors some measure of commitment or numbers before they commit to these deeper discounts. Because initially, a lot of people got sort of not aggressive about it, but they were like, all right, we have thousands of projects. We're gonna approach these vendors and we're gonna demand that they give us 50 or 60% off the bat. And of course, you can imagine that was met with a lot of a lot of no responses, right? But if you give vendors sort of an on-ramp where they can gradually increase their offers based on traction, they're a lot more receptive to that. And it turns out some of these minimum order quantities are pretty reasonable, right? Given the number of homes that burn down, which is anywhere from 10 to 14,000 across the 3 areas, they're achievable with some amount of coordination. And so that's kind of the format that we landed on. And so far it's really worked out well for all parties involved.
That's really interesting. So I know it's vendor dependent, but just broadly or generally, like, what are the minimum quantities that you're seeing? Is it by volume of the product? Is it by project? How is that quantified? And yeah, what are the numbers that we're seeing? Is it like 10 houses, 20 houses, that's the minimum, 5, like you said, or...
Yeah, exactly. Again, that was sort of another breakthrough that we had, right? Which is the units, the units of measurement for all these different orders. And we landed on projects, which sure enough is really simple for most vendors. Now, within that, a vendor might want to set certain reasonable minimums, right? So if you're talking about, Windows, a minimum of 10 windows, for example, as opposed to just one, right? But still,
Sure.
Projects generally works for every type of vendor, because you have to remember we have a lot of different types of vendors on the platform. And so it would be a nightmare if every different type of vendor, say, lumber, but then cabinets and then appliances or tiling, all chose their own volume unit. That would be really hard for the customers to wrap their heads around. And so we landed on projects, which isn't, again, perfect for any one vendor, but is workable for most of them.
Gotcha. And the minimum project numbers are pretty good, like you said.
Oh yeah, exactly. They've been very pleasantly achievable. We're talking about, again, 5 projects and 10 projects are real numbers that real vendors have given us for 30 or 40% off or 45% off so far. And so you can imagine if we can start to hit those 50 or 100 or 1,000 numbers, we may be able to unlock even more. But so far, so good.
And so, of course, the other question is, what happens if I'm the first, 0 to 5, and then it gets to 10? Did I lose out because I was the first and early adopter?
It's a great question. No, you don't. So we refer to those customers as early bird customers. So if it's a 5, say the MOQ is 5, then if your customers 1 through 4, you will pay full price initially. But once that 5th project is achieved, then we've contracted with the vendors to pay back the original customers 1 through 4 a rebate in the form of the amount that they're owed. So the discount that they're owed as being part of that group. So if the MOQ is 5 and you get 30% off at project 5, then those customers 1 through 4 can get a rebate for 30% off after the fact.
Wow. It's such a cool idea. I mean, you've really taken away all the pain points of collective purchasing in a very intelligent way. And I, prior to Buildnotes and meeting you, I would have kind of maybe somewhat pessimistically assumed it would be not possible because you have to get all these vendors on board to agree to that. And that last piece that you mentioned about the rebate is such a critical one that helps encourage customers to buy from the platform, even if you haven't yet hit the 5 or 10 mark or whatever it is. I mean, that's a really, really significant thing. I cannot think of any reason why we wouldn't purchase through Buildnotes. Can you? I mean, that's a dumb question to ask you, but I don't see it and also, by the way, for folks listening, you should go to the website. It's beautiful. It operates well. It's a high functioning website. Some people, they create websites and you look at them, you're like, yeah, this feels like you created the website, and it doesn't feel professional. This is a very high functioning and high performance platform, I feel like, too.
Thank you. So what was the specific question?
I don't know, actually. I was just saying, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't use Buildnotes. You know what I mean? So I guess the question would be, what types of vendors are listed on there right now? Are you trying to grow? Are we what products do we have? Is it all different types of materials? Is it just materials? Is it HVAC stuff? What are we talking about?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll pose the question for you. I think, on the surface, it sounds really great, right? But in practice, there's all sorts of challenges and all sorts of reasons why resistance you might meet. Everything from, builders who maybe have their preferred vendors and have long-standing relationships and ways of doing things, right? That's one we get a lot. To not having every material that everyone's going to need, right? And to that end, I'll say, absolutely, we don't have every single material that people might want or builders are used to working with, even though we have 80 vendors and more signing up all the time. I'd say we're really strong in windows, HVAC, electrical panels, flooring. These are things that are can be owner appliances as well, can be owner bought, but don't necessarily have to be. But at the very least, they're often the client is often given some measure of choice, right? So that's worked out well. There are also things that vendors are often willing to, the manufacturers are often willing to sell direct, so they don't necessarily need to bring on distributors and get them involved. Although we also do have some distributors involved too, which has been great. So local distributors who can help deliver and mediate has been awesome. But those categories have worked out really well. They also happen to be relatively high margin, and so yeah. But the ways we've addressed that is to build a platform in a very open, collaborative, and open source way. We do not limit the categories of materials or the products or the vendors that the community can purchase from. At any time, you as a customer can recommend or request a new vendor or a new product by just posting it to the website. And we'll do our best to go out and reach out to that vendor and bring them on and say, hey, we've got a large quantity of customers in this situation who are interested in your product. Do you want to join the platform? And that's actually how we've gotten a lot of our vendors, especially products in sort of niche categories and specialties like passive home or all electric, right? So there's a number of vendors that I personally would have never heard of were it not for some homeowners who are really committed to building back passive. And so they've brought passive home window manufacturers, vents and insulation and all sorts of these cool heat pumps and stuff that we now have on the platform, and a lot more people are interested in as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That actually ties back to your comment about the plastic cups as well. And it's
Yeah.
yeah, good. It's true though, that remark that you made that, one of the silver linings of all of this is that people are now open to, and in some cases wanting, these quote I've been using the word alternative methods or means or materials to build back better. That's the phrase. And like I was talking to a contractor friend, and we're talking about using light gauge steel for houses and how it's historically been something that widely used in commercial, but for houses, like, no, we don't use those for houses. And for those of us who are educated, we're like, why not? Aside from, insulation, which is easily solved. But now it's like we actually have a client base, a lot of people who are like, yeah, I don't want wood in my house, and, which would kind of make sense. It's phenomenal, really. So how large is the team of Buildnotes? Maybe go even further back. So when did the idea for Buildnotes really start and gain traction? Was it just you in a room creating this platform at the beginning? Like, how did it kick off?
Wow, great question.
Have you slept since the last? No.
Less than normal. No, absolutely. The team is small, and for a long time, it was largely me. So, we have some. So it's me, an engineer, an account manager, but mostly me and some part-time folks are at this point.
Wow.
We also have some support from the community. So we've got some really great block captains who are pretty much, I consider them team members at this point. They help us with community organizing and liaising with various parties and organizations in the community, which has been great, and also vendor relations. But it's been relatively slim, and yeah, so this company existed before the wildfires broke out. Actually, we transitioned into this when I realized so many folks were interested in this collective purchasing concept. But prior to that, we actually were a small company focused on logistics and wholesale purchasing, and was actually dabbling in the food and beverage industry. So again, I mentioned we've tried this concept in a lot of different industries, one of them being food and beverage, hospitality, where the concept of what are called group purchasing organizations, or GPOs, is actually really common. So this is, you can look it up, it's a very common concept where you basically have a lot of customers in hospitality or medicine or government or education who purchase through the same representative who goes out to vendors and tries to negotiate better pricing. And so we were doing that with some wineries and natural wineries, actually, where
Okay.
yeah, it was interesting. Basically, long story short, there's an interesting system in the alcohol industry called the three-tier system, where essentially it dates back to the Prohibition era, where the government mandates that producers of wine are not allowed to sell directly to customers. They have to sell through what's called a distributor. There's, God bless the distributors. They're great parts of the community, but there's no real reason why you should have to purchase from them, right? And they take anywhere from 20 to 30% just for handing it off from the producer to the retailer. But it turns out there was a workaround that was introduced during the pandemic, where customers could actually buy directly from the producer if you purchased via phone or internet.
It's such a good example of an ass backward set of rules.
And so
Okay,
it's this loophole that emerged, but really the only reason why a distributor would actually ever want to do that is if you placed a large enough order, because they're not going to just take one bottle off the shelves and then package it up and mail it to you, right? You have to purchase a large enough quantity. So enter us, who are like, okay, that's interesting. You're telling me that a customer could potentially save 40 to 60% off on their cases of wine if they buy in large enough quantities. Well, we got to figure out ways to aggregate demand here, so that we can get enough customers to purchase large enough quantities to get that savings. So we were doing that in that industry before this happened, and kind of pivoted when the fires broke out, because it turns out the wine industry, while really fun and interesting, is not a huge industry, and it's also maybe not growing at the rate people would have expected. Anyways, that was a long tangent.
Yeah.
But
No, and actually, it makes, not only does it make sense, but it does demonstrate why you've been successful with Buildnotes LA specifically, because I think also in these types of crisis scenarios, you always have everybody coming up with kind of similar ideas, but no one's able to execute. And there's a lot of reasons for that. There's the endurance factor, the intelligence factor, the skill set factor, but also, it's hard to get a bunch of strangers together who don't actually have expertise in X thing and then try to achieve that thing. Like, it's just really difficult to do. So the fact that you had in-depth knowledge about these systems and ways of working and software development, that's why it exists, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, or trying it many, many different times and failing.
That too. Yeah.
That helps. But, I can't take complete credit there, right? There's obviously an enormous will to get this done. Homeowners want it. If you can save, 20, 30, 40% off on the largest investment most of us will ever make, that's a very obvious need. Similarly, there's tons of great organizations who are helping get the word out for a lot of causes. And so there's a great infrastructure that we're tapping into as well. So, really fortunate in an unfortunate situation to have really great community in these burn zones.
So when did the website go live?
Yeah, it's a good question. Again, in a lot of ways, it was live. I kind of just repurposed the code base for this when things broke out, when the fires happened. But I'd say this concept really materialized towards the beginning of summer 2025. I'd say May.
Okay.
In its very early infancy, we had a version of this in May. But then, sort of in its more polished form, I would say towards the end of 2025. Yeah, it's gone through a couple iterations.
Yeah. And so what do you guys need from the community? Is it people? I mean, I'm sure you need more help. Is it connections? Is it knowing more vendors? Like what are the things that the community can do or listeners can do?
So that's a great question. To keep it simple, I would say just distribution, word of mouth, telling your neighbors, telling your friends and family, but also some of the folks who have a bigger microphone, like yourself, right? Some of these larger Facebook, Instagram groups, making sure that really everyone in the community has at least heard of us, has at least heard of the concept. Maybe it's not for them. Maybe they don't. They're not interested. Maybe they're going with a turnkey solution and everything's taken care of themselves. But we think it would just be unfortunate if of the 14,000 households who were affected, a majority of them had not at least heard of us. And this is really important because a lot of folks are literally displaced, right? They're not living in the LA area at all right now. They're staying with relatives. They could be even out of state. And so they're not seeing some of the efforts going on the ground as they drive through the area. They may not be aware of all the different Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp groups going on. So finding ways to reach them, I think, is the most important thing.
And now a quick break to thank the sponsors who support the Second Studio. Dear architects, design leaders, and founders redefining the industry, if you want to shape not only buildings, but the business behind them, this is your moment. Future London Academy's Executive MBA takes you inside the boardrooms of Pentagram, Uber, Zaha Hadid Architects, and Google, where you'll master finance, strategy, and operations from the people who already excel at them. Study along peers transforming the industry worldwide and do it all in just 9 intensive weeks over 1 year between London and California. The program is award-winning, transformative, and crafted for design and architecture leaders with 15 or more years of experience. If you're ready to grow your impact, apply now by tapping the Future London Academy link in our show notes.
This episode is brought to you by Chaos. They make award-winning design and visualization tools, and they're really pushing the boundaries with AI. Now, AI is shaking up the architecture and design world, and Chaos is taking a responsible approach. Their tools are built to help architects, designers, and visualization specialists to work faster and explore more ideas without replacing creativity. Basically, Chaos wants AI to make your imagination stronger, not take over. So you get to design with more freedom, create stunning visuals, and stay in control of your work. If you want to see what that looks like, tap the Chaos link in our show notes.
Has it been difficult navigating all the various groups and community boards and organizations? Because there are, every time I think I have a handle on kind of the general scope of all these groups, I realize there's a whole nother universe of them. And it's at times, even for me, just as a practice, as an architecture office, feels overwhelming. Like, how do you guys tackle that without running around like 24/7, meeting? That's all you have to do for, 8 hours a day, is just meeting all these different groups, I feel like.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, we are running around 24/7, meeting with these groups. So it's, while we have had success, and at this point, I think enough folks and orgs have heard of us. A lot of it was brute force. A lot of it was showing up to every meeting every week. I mean, to this day, so I'm part of the Eden Fire Collaborative Rebuild Committee. So the Eden Fire Collaborative being sort of an org of orgs, an umbrella org in Altadena, where a lot of nonprofits and builders and architects have kind of agreed to meet. It used to be weekly. Now it's monthly. But showing up, right, and talking to all the different organizations who are doing great work in a lot of different dimensions, and getting them to spread the word, and just kind of being consistent and available. I guess has been the key. And you know, explaining the concepts succinctly and enabling people to sort of see how this affects a lot of the different parties and causes involved, right? The more people can save, the more people can, you know, build back. The stronger the stronger the community is, right?
I mean, it's really like getting the advantages of being a large-scale developer, and one of them is the collective or bulk purchasing, whatever you call it. It's essentially that, but kind of, I don't know what even the word is, kind of like broken down to the individual level, so an individual homeowner can get that value, even if it's a different GC, a different design, different property. All of those things, and it's really phenomenal. Have you guys had any challenges with like appearing legitimate to other groups and companies or vendors and people? Because I guess where I'm coming from is, in this, as a result of the fires, there are so many micro startups that would try to do what you're describing or something else to solve the larger problem. A lot of them kind of fade away, and I feel like also for the established vendors and companies, they kind of wait and see like what shakes out, like who's for real, like who's actually going to be doing something and who's not shady also, you know? Like, so has it been difficult to differentiate yourself and say, no, we are here we're staying here, this is a legitimate operation, take us seriously?
That's a great question. And now that I think of it, you know, though that has always been a challenge, is a challenge that we've been able to surmount, right? Is establishing legitimacy out of something that's relatively small, right? So very early on, you know, what we're building is effectively what you can refer to as a two-sided marketplace, right? You're trying to bring on the customers as well as the vendors at the same time, which is historically a really challenging problem. And so one strategy we took early on was a little unconventional. I think most people, if you were to try to start a marketplace like this, would start with the builders, right? And especially large builders, large developers. So another way to think about Buildnotes is really bringing the type of purchasing power that a larger developer typically gets. They get, this is not new, right? They usually get 40 to 50% off, because if you're Lennar or something who builds a ton of homes each year, or a commercial developer, you're in a different pricing tier. And so how can smaller builders or even smaller households and owner builders tap into that same pricing tier? And so a lot of people would have thought that we should start approaching builders first, because they're the ones who often purchase the materials. They're the ones who have the relationships, which is true. But for anyone who's ever tried to sell software or services to, you know, enterprise services to builders, you're probably familiar with how long that sales cycle can be. It can be months, you know, or you know, half a year before you break through and convince a builder who, you know, may not be too receptive to trying new things and has their established ways of doing things. And may not be even, too interested in using technology, frankly. So we realized that it was actually homeowners who were a lot more accessible, and who were on these WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups and Instagram groups, sharing information with each other, right? Out of desperation, oftentimes, right? And there were a lot more of them. So they were a lot more social. They were a lot more, open-minded. And so we decided to start with them first. And sure enough, once we had a critical mass of homeowners, we started getting builders signing up for our platform on their own, without even really having to knock on doors and show up at all their work job sites with donuts and whatnot. They were coming. For the clients, right? They're looking for leads, and so now we have the homeowners and the builders, both of which can place orders. And then when you have the homeowners and the builders, that's appealing to the vendors, right? And that's appealing to a lot of vendors who you might have thought would wouldn't have given us the time of day. Now, that said, a lot of vendors are also in the community. They realize how big of a market and opportunity this is as well. And so it's been useful to go out to these various builders fairs and to meet folks showing up at events and to tell them about Buildnotes as well.
That's really smart. I mean, you start with the homeowners, and then if they are aware and they understand what Buildnotes is, which I would assume they do if they're logged in there and they have a profile, then they can be the ones to tell the contractor, I need you to go through this website and see if there's discounts. And if not, then fine. If there is, then let's use them. Because I mean, at the end of the day, the client is in charge of everything. And if they're spearheading an effort, then that trickles down to architect, builder, everyone else. So on the platform then, I know it's like a marketplace, but then there's also a kind of communication social platform component to it as well. Yes.
Again, tapping into sort of people's social nature to sort of build more virality and word of mouth. So allowing people to ask questions, ask each other questions. How's your build going? Are you working with this builder? Have you heard of this product, this vendor? What do you think of them? That, lends itself to just the social network. But then you can imagine, obviously, people giving product recommendations and referring different products and services to one another, which is, the foundation of a larger group or volume purchase, right? Is sharing recommendations with each other. So it kind of goes hand in hand, and yeah.
So a couple random questions. The first is, do you guys have a marketing person or publicist on your team, or are you the one handling?
Yeah, I think you're looking at him right now.
Okay. I have a list of other 6 people, but I think I'm looking at all 6 of them right now. I have a feeling.
You're not. It's not all 6, but I know. We've got a solid group of folks here. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to have dedicated roles here for specific things. We're kind of relying on the elegance of the tool and how it's designed to be sort of part of that sort of distributed mechanism for us.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, if there's any publicist, marketing individual, whatever you call yourselves out there, who has spare time and you want to donate your time, then you should contact them, because I think this is very please. And also, are you guys just inundated with new products and vendors being sent to you from various people? Like, how does that intake go?
Yeah, that's a good question. We've kind of reached an equilibrium now where we have enough solid vendors on the platform and more coming in regularly. But yeah, the intake process has been, let's see, kind of leaning on the community, honestly. And what I mean by that is we've established a lot of relationships with architects and builders in the community. You among them, right? That's kind of actually another key to this, is having really solid relationships with kind of the key parties. So Altadena Collective, Foothill Catalog, Case Study 2.0, Case Study Adapt, Team Palisades, Eden Fire Collaborative, all these folks who many of them have lots of expertise in architecture and building. And so, we'll lean on them to kind of check out a vendor and say, hey, is this a legitimate vendor? Have you worked with them before? Is this builder legitimate as well? And so that's been kind of a key to us establishing some sort of vetting process.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And have you guys had any assistance or help from the large-scale developers? Like you had mentioned, Lennar, but there's a bunch of them, right, that they buy bulk stuff already. It seems like there could be, I don't know how, but some kind of synergy between what you're doing and they're doing. That's
a great question. No doubt, we have spoken to them and collaborated. That's actually another interesting point here. So on the one hand, there's kind of, I think, a couple models that have emerged for rebuilding in the community, which I think are complementary. So you have larger developers like Lennar, Brookfield, who have tremendous capacity. They build thousands of homes across the country every year, and they obviously have the economies of scale with their vendors. But they have come into the community with turnkey solutions, meaning pre-approved plans and a set of homes that you can buy, and they'll take care of everything, right? They'll take care of the design, the project management, and really just deliver you a home, right? Which is great.
Yeah.
At the same time, there's a large segment of the community who really wants to build back custom or semi-custom or like for like. And if you're doing that, it's harder to participate in those turnkey solutions. So that's where we feel like we offer a really complementary option here, where you can build back custom, but you can also get some of the economies of scale on the material side at least. So you can work with an architect, a designer, right? Or a boutique builder who maybe only builds 3, 5, 10 homes a year, while still getting some benefits of the economies of scale. And so to that extent, we've talked with a lot of the larger builders and said, hey, there's a lot of ways where, we're dealing with two really different customer segments, and they're not really going to overlap much. So what if there's ways we could tap into the economies of scale that you folks have, and really work together to bring your volume to the rest of the community? And even more so, another way that we feel we're compatible with some of these large builders is, even if you do go with a turnkey solution, they're not necessarily going to build and buy everything you're going to want to need before you can move in, right? So like landscaping or a lot of random, specialty things that you would want to add to your house after the fact, to make your house more unique and custom, especially if, you're afraid of having, say, the exact same home as someone across the street of you. Maybe choosing different colors or, again, landscaping, hardscaping, things like that. Well, we can partner with a larger builder where they do, 80, 90% of the purchasing, but that last 10 or 20%, which can really make your home unique, you can find some of those materials on Buildnotes. And so in that way, we can collaborate with them as well. But, so far, we haven't had a major collaboration with, say, the likes of Lennar or Brookfield, even though I have gotten on the phone with Adrian Foley CEO of Brookfield, and pitch some pretty aggressive concepts and ideas to them.
Interesting. Yeah, well, I hope something concrete materializes, because there's certainly overlap. I think you described the different client bases, the two of them, quite distinctly and well, and they're very different. It's interesting, and my actually perspective is probably skewed because obviously we do custom houses, but a lot of folks are not interested in building something that is a true development spec, that's been repeated 1,000 times already. They don't want that. But it's expensive to do custom. A more practical, or I guess technical question is, so if I were to order, so homeowner can order from the website, a general contractor can. When I place that order, am I paying Buildnotes and then you're buying from the vendor? Like, how does that chain of entities work? And are you guys taking a cut?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this is another thing that we kind of had to figure out by trial and error. We are not a full marketplace in the sense that you think of, say, Amazon.com, where we have full inventory of every vendor, and we take custody and inventory of the products and ship it out. We're more of a broker. So we connect you with the various vendors. We have the capability to process payments on our platform, but we actually don't for the most part. Payment is paid directly to the vendor. Returns, warranties, fulfillment, all of that is between you and the vendor. And so we do take a commission after the fact from the vendor if there's a purchase. So a small percentage of the transaction. And also, it's important to point out that our entire platform works on a quote and invoice basis. So there's no one-click checkout where Amazon.com, you purchase the product, it arrives 12 hours later. If you're interested in the product, you or the builder, you reach out to the vendor on our platform and you request a quote, and they can give you a quote based on all the parameters. And if there's agreement, they can furnish an invoice on the platform, and you can pay it with their preferred method. So, with a credit card, bank transfer, through a payment portal of theirs, etc. Gotcha.
And it makes complete sense too, because a lot of times these products and materials that are being purchased, it's a lot of money. It's not like an Amazon purchase, a normal Amazon purchase, and they're complex in the sense that we would want to be able to talk directly with the vendor and say, okay, what's the deal with lead times? How do you solve that? Like, there's a lot of more nuanced conversation that needs to be had to order from a vendor that I think most, to be honest, clients, they don't think about. So actually, where my mind goes is more like, we handle procurement for a lot of things. Not like base materials, but like more like finished things. And some clients are like, I can do that. I'm like, do you have a full-time job? Because if you do, no, you can't. There's a lot more conversation with the vendor, sometimes more than there should be. But that's the nature of it. So it makes sense that you guys act as a broker. You're not. I guess another way to put it is that you're facilitating things, but you're not getting in the way. It sounds like.
Yeah, right. I appreciate that. We're not getting in the way for a number of reasons. The biggest is that we have such a wide range of vendors that, one-click checkout would not have worked for some of them at all. Like, think custom cabinet installer or maker, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it can work for appliances, but that's why we had to sort of go with the lowest common denominator there. And you're right, procurement can be a hairy problem. We're working on a lot of ways to streamline that and standardize that as well, right? Kind of cutting down on the types of conversations you need to have with a vendor prior to actually getting a quote. Because a lot of folks, we found that alone has caused a little bit of friction where you have customers who just have paralysis because we have so many vendors. They don't know which one to reach out to first, and they certainly don't want to have a conversation with every single one of them just to get a quote. So we actually came up with a new concept very recently, which we were referring to as soft quotes. And with soft quotes, what you do is you as a customer just upload your plans or material schedules, which you can redact, by the way, remove personal information, black stuff out. But the vendors are actually not allowed to chat with you and message you until they've given you even a ballpark quote, just a ballpark quote based off the plans and material list. And we found that may be frustrating for people initially, but actually cuts down on a lot of the friction for both parties. So the vendor has all the information really they would need to make an estimated guess as to what material that customer would want. If they can see the style of home, they can see the square footage, they can generally see what they're dealing with. They can recommend a product if they offer multiple of them, quote based on that, and that gives the customer a really easy read on roughly how much does this vendor cost relative to others, right? Are we talking about a $60,000 window vendor or $120,000 or $140,000 window vendor? Because one of those is just not even going to be relevant to me, right?
Yeah.
And that can also save the vendor time when they're quoting, because instead of them having to think that every single quote is final and must be, immutable and perfect, instead they can give a range to the customer, knowing that it could change and knowing that the goal is just to get a rough estimate. And so when they're receiving tons of requests for quotes, they don't have to belabor each one as well.
That's a high five. I mean, that's amazing. That is one of the things that really annoys the heck out of professionals as you reach out to vendors and they want to have this like a long, elaborate, first of all, they want to make a big sales pitch to you. And sometimes it's like, I just need to know roughly the price, like to know what tier we're in here, and that's it. And it's interesting. And sometimes the vendors, from what I've seen historically, they're reluctant to do that. And it's quite annoying. I mean, even this is a similar but different example. Like when a client's looking to hire a GC to do a house, they're asking for a ballpark how much it would cost to build a house like they had before. And GCs are like, well, no, I need full structural and architectural. It's like, guy, I understand that you're afraid to give a number because the client's going to get pissed off later off if it ends up being higher. But you have to realize that for people who have never done this, they have no idea if we're talking about 400 a square foot, which I'm skeptical of, or 600 or 1,200. Like, give them something to work with.
Totally. Exactly. Yeah, you nailed it, right? And I think the reason we've been able to convince vendors and parties to do this when normally they're not used to is, again, this is a unique situation, right? It's not business as usual. And the type of volume and numbers you have here, if you learn how to leverage those, you can really get people to at least try something different. Similarly, getting back to your question of legitimacy, right? Not everyone's going to get the concept or be amenable to it initially, but some people are, and you can leverage them and lean on them. For example, some vendors have understood the concept from day one and they get it and they love it. Right. And they're like, yeah, this is a volume game. We're not trying to beat around the edges to maximize margins for every single individual project. We're trying to land as many of these projects as possible because it's a very sort of once in a hopefully generation circumstance here. And so you lean on those vendors to set examples and to set precedents, and to then approach some of the other vendors who may be a little more reticent to try it and be like, well, look, not only are they trying this, but actually they might be a competitor of yours, and they're all on board. And another interesting thing I'll mention, which has been really pleasantly surprising, is that some of the most amenable vendors have been really great premium and luxury and high-end vendors, which you may not have expected. But it works for them, right? The wholesale is a large segment of their business. And when you have buy-in from those types of folks, it makes it a lot easier for other types of vendors and parties
Sure.
to really to get behind the concept.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. I know we're at the hour here, and I want to be mindful of your time. One kind of last specific question is, so what happens if I have a vendor and I've purchased from them and I didn't know about your platform beforehand?
That is,
that's not a you problem.
That is not a you problem, an us problem. But hopefully that's a motivation for you and your neighbors to purchase through the platform and get everybody else on board, because it would be a shame if people built back or didn't buy or did build back, right, and sold because they did the math and it didn't add up, and they weren't aware of this offering and this platform. So again, we're just trying to get the word out and lean on as many of the different orgs and community members to tell everyone else about the concept.
Okay, cool. The last two final questions. One is that I assume this is specific for fire rebuild zones only. And then two, I think you kind of already talked about it, but what are the next immediate or bigger things on the horizon for Buildnotes?
That's a great question. On the one hand, we are very committed to this community. This is our focus right now. We have also gotten some interest from other, parties and use cases. I think one obvious one is more broadly the distribution of fire hardened materials and products and the retrofitting of standing homes in at-risk WUI areas, right? You can imagine there's a lot of those in California. There's a lot of those all across the West Coast and frankly the country, where you have a lot of homes who are at risk potentially of being burned down. And so you actually have a lot of government and civic initiatives that are trying to get people to retrofit their homes with a lot of the same materials that we are encouraging these rebuilders to use. So brand guard vents, fire-resistant siding, fire-resistant decking, and all these things. But it's really expensive to retrofit an existing home with those materials. And so to have a platform that can get you volume discounts on that could really put some of these communities over the edge to the point where they actually do commit and they do actually fire harden their homes. And so that's another potential market, if you will. But really, we also see a lot of compatibilities and synergies with architects like yourself. Not only because architects are sort of following along with the project and the materials that we're recommending. We actually did a project with IBHS, the resiliency company, Habitat for Humanity, and Photo Catalog, which was a materials list approved by IBHS that if you build back with these materials, you can meet at least the materials portion of the IBHS wildfire prepared home or wildfire prepared home standard. And we found that a lot of architects found that resource really useful as sort of this dynamic reference that they can use for projects that aren't even necessarily rebuilds. They can use this for their other projects in the LA area, or which may be in WUI zones. And so, we think we can be really useful to architects. And the other thing is, if you kind of think about the economics that architects face, is they're kind of under siege at all times from a lot of different angles, but by design builders, for example, right? I mean, a project that you are trying to bid, just from a design perspective, might end up going to a design builder because they've figured out ways to leverage economies of scale, to buy in bulk, to build in bulk, and to develop a lot more efficiently. If there was a way for you as an architect to get your client maybe, again, 20, 30, 40% off on just the materials, that could be the difference between the client deciding to go with the design builder or sticking with you and your workflow. So we really feel like there's a lot of synergies with folks who want custom, beautiful, technical design, but also could make use of ways to get volume purchases and economies of scale as well.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And I think everything you said makes complete sense. It also, I love that it's feathering into, again, the people who are wanting custom houses, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of, strings. It doesn't seem like what you're offering comes with a lot of strings. And I know you guys are making an effort to get the word out there and also make it an easy process, an easy thing to use. And I think you've achieved that. So David, thanks so much for making the time on what day are we? We typically do these on a Friday, so I think it's a Friday, but it's not a Friday. on a Wednesday. It's a Tuesday. Oh God. Okay. Well, on a Tuesday, I think what you guys are doing is great, and anyone listening, definitely reach out to their team. Thanks again.
Please reach out.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to this week's. If you like what we're doing, then please support the show by leaving a review of us in the Apple Podcasts app. You can also find us on Spotify and YouTube. We have an Instagram, which is Second Studio Pod. So join us on there. We post reels, quotes, guest work images, announcements, all that kind of fun stuff. We also have a hotline, which is 213-222-6950. So if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for guests and topics, feel free to text that or leave a voicemail. And lastly, we have a website, which is secondstudiopod.com, where you can find we just surpassed 500, all 500 episodes on there. And again, Buildnotes and David, I think they're doing really phenomenal things. It just makes a lot of sense, and they've figured it out. They're the ones who actually figured it out, and they're in it for the long run. So visit the website, join their cause, help them out, send vendors, do whatever we can to help them, because it's all helping. It's all toward helping the greater community. So that's it for now. Thanks again. Stay tuned for more, and talk to you next week. Bye.